Welcome guys. Today we are going to see Top 5 Best Survival Horror Games on PS4, Part 3. Before we start, if you haven't seen my Part 1 and Part 2 videos, I will provide those video links in the description. Now, let's begin with number 5. Soma. Soma is a survival horror game that came from a pretty big development studio that has released other iconic survival horror titles such as Amnesia. In this game, players take the role of a man that's dealing with some unusual medical issues. After agreeing to go through a controversial procedure, our protagonist blacks out and appears in some strange facility. This game is set in a first-person perspective without much of a combat system. Instead, this game focuses on solving puzzles and using stealth to explore the area. Likewise, this game features more psychological horror, making you question what's really going on. As you solve puzzles, you'll get new clues about where you are located and the creatures that are lurking about. You can play this game on different platforms, such as PlayStation 4, macOS, Xbox One, Microsoft Windows, Linux, and classic macOS. Next, number 4. Alien Isolation. Alien Isolation is set 15 years after the events of Alien, where players will take on the role of Amanda Ripley, the daughter of Ellen Ripley, who is on an investigation of tracking down the mysterious disappearance of her mother. Much like the old-school survival horror titles, Alien Isolation emphasizes players avoiding the hostile alien enemy. Instead, gamers must rely on some stealth mechanics to maneuver around the game, using a device to help track down the alien creature stowed away on board. Rather than following a pathway designated by the developer, the AI used in the alien creatures can actively listen for the player and visually look around the area in hopes you're not hidden out of sight. As a result, you'll not only have to stay out of sight, but keep quiet as well. Alien Isolation also uses a save feature that can only be accessed by certain in-game terminals, making it equally challenging to save your game. You can play this game on Windows, PlayStation 3, PlayStation 4, Xbox 360, Xbox One, Linux, OS X, Nintendo Switch, Android, and iOS. Next, number 3. Until Dawn. Until Dawn is a survival horror game that is only available on the PlayStation 4 at the moment. Developed by Supermassive Games, this game has a focus on the narrative and player choices. In this game, players will follow a group of friends on a retreat to a vacation cabin in the mountains. However, there is apparently something else lurking within the resort, and it caused the group of friends to get split up. As mentioned, a big aspect that has kept players actively enjoying this game is the interactive drama story. There are several ways this game could end, and it ultimately depends on the choices you make, and just how fast you're able to act on the choices being presented within the game. This franchise was such a hit that it even sparked a couple of spin-off titles and a somewhat spiritual successor with the Dark Pictures anthology, which mainly features the same gameplay style but with different storylines. Next, number 2. Resident Evil HD Remastered. Resident Evil is one of the most iconic survival horror video games that most would be familiar with. It's become a mega franchise that not only spans multiple video game installments, but movies and even plays as well. The long-running franchise also gives developers the ability to produce remakes and even remastered editions of their previous video game titles. In fact, Resident Evil, the first installment release, has both a remake and remastered edition available. While Resident Evil launched on the original PlayStation, it wasn't until the Nintendo GameCube that Capcom opted to remake the Resident Evil video game, giving it a massive overhaul in terms of visuals and gameplay mechanics. Now years later, we also have a remastered edition of that remake, giving players a nice coat of paint for current generation platforms. We're sure that you are all familiar with the first game. As a quick recap, the game follows a special police division tasked with searching for a missing team of operatives. Forced to flee into an abandoned mansion, after rabid zombie dogs take chase, the group slowly uncovers a zombie virus, among other experiments waiting inside. It's a game based on solving puzzles to unlock new areas, managing a limited inventory, and even having limited saves, making it tricky to determine if saving the game is more important than potentially exploring the surrounding area. Finally, number 1. Resident Evil 2. After the Resident Evil 7 launch, Capcom decided to bring out another remake from a classic installment of the franchise. After remaking and remastering Resident Evil, the development studio decided to give Resident Evil 2 a remake, which brought a massive overhaul to the game from its original release on the PlayStation. The game follows shortly after the initial events of the first installment, but this time around, you take on the role of Leon Kennedy and Claire Redfield. With Leon heading to Raccoon City for his first day on the police force, he meets up with a woman named Claire Redfield, who searches for her brother Chris. Unfortunately, they soon realize that there is some zombie infestation and, as a result, get split up. The duo is stuck in an overrun city, and decides to meet back up at the police station. From here, players get essentially 2 potential game playthroughs, with a storyline following each character, and their own events throughout the campaign. Both have unique NPCs they meet up with, quests, and tasks that will differ, and you'll have to play each character to get the full ending. This is also a classic survival horror game, with a focus on limited supplies. There's also a lot of backtracking as you progress through different areas, only to find yourself needing a certain item or puzzle solution to continue on. There is a pretty wide range of enemies you'll encounter, some of which may have weaknesses over particular weapons. Ultimately, you may find yourself having to go back and forth into designated save rooms to not only save your progress, but to manage your inventory. Thanks for watching Top 5. What do you think of these games? Comment your thoughts below. If you found this video knowledgeable, consider leaving a like and subscribing. Thank you very much.
To change up.